Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right, thanks for checking out this Saturday checkdown edition of Purple Daily here on a beautiful weekend in the Twin Cities. And before we get to the first question here, kind of left over from Feedback Friday, is in regards to a Viking season that Nate Tice brought up earlier in the week when he was a guest. One of the underrated, crazy Viking seasons in history. We can go back in the time capsule here. And actually, I think Eric Sugarman in 2005 was the Vikings head athletic trainer, wasn't he?
No, it was the next season, 2006, because he came with Brad from Philadelphia.
Got it. Okay,
But he
was in the league. Okay.
Chuck Barta, who, by the way, is now, I think, the athletic trainer for the Lynx.
Okay.
So, but yes, Eric was the guy in 2006 and actually was with the team for a very long time. Did some absolutely outstanding work there. I covered it when E.J. Henderson fractured his leg. Eric was right on the scene and played a key role there. And now he's playing a key role at a place called Neos Elite Performance that can help you if chronic pain is holding you back. If you are a former basketball player, and let's say you can't play now. Heck, let's say you can't play golf. Eric and his team, what they bring is cutting-edge regenerative medicine and cellular IV therapy that's designed to get you going again without invasive procedures. This is what they call white glove service, which means they come to you. No trip to the doctors. They are going to come to you, and they're going to help you stop your suffering. They're going to get you back to doing what you love. And in fact, if you reach them now and mention Purple Daily, you're going to get $500 off a cellular IV therapy treatment. Here is their website, neoselite.com, Neos, N-E-O-S, elite.com. Check them out. Eric and his team doing absolutely outstanding work. They want to get you back to doing what you love.
So Cody Banks says, I hope this email finds you well. Thank you, Cody. It has found us.
I can't complain too much.
Existing in the universe.
The Wild first round again.
As a long-suffering Minnesota sports fan, my ears perked up when Nate Tice started to talk about the 2005 Vikings. Would love to hear a whole episode from Nate's perspective on that Tice-era Vikings team.
So would I.
I knew we can maybe make that happen at some point. But Judd covered that team, right? You covered. You were done with your Green Bay stuff, and
that was my first year with Seifert on the beat for the Star Tribune.
I know you alluded to this as a possibility in the episode, which we'll do it at some point with Nate. But just wanted to come on here and say, heck yes, I would listen to that. Thanks for all you do. I barely notice I'm working at work because I listen to Score North podcasts all day. Keeps the day moving and adds so much color to the season for Vikings and Wolves. My wife will even watch the episodes with me, as she has recently gotten into the Timberwolves as well. So awesome. Yeah, Cody, thank you for the kind words. That 2005 Vikings season, so that was Love Boat. Mm-hmm. It was Daunte Culpepper tearing his knee up. Mm-hmm. They went on a crazy run. They were buried, and then they went on a crazy run and almost made the playoffs at the end of the year. Yep. And then Mike Tice winds up getting fired via press release handout in the locker room. You and I were both in the. I remember you and I weren't. We didn't really know each other at the time. I was like an intern at KFXN Radio, but like we all caught wind that Tice was getting fired, and Nate was working as like a ball boy or something.
Yeah.
And so we all found out, including Nate, that Mike Tice was getting fired via a press release that was being passed around the locker room.
Yeah, so I actually saw Nate and chatted with him for an extended period in training camp during a training camp practice last summer, and I said the last time I saw you, Lester Begley was handing you like what looked like a homemade release informing you of your father's termination, and Nate was one of the first people to be handed it. So like they didn't exactly handle that well. Nate now in 2005, if I'm correct about this, because I talked to Mike at the time back then about it, I believe Nate was the starting quarterback for Edina High School for the Hornets. But yeah, and Nate, what was funny is Nate said, I couldn't remember who passed out the press release. I said, I think it was Lester. Yeah, because it was very, it came from my high ranking. They didn't have just the PR guy. So, but yeah, there is, I would love to, I'll echo this. I would love to hear Nate's recollections and thoughts, because that season, and the boat was a huge thing, but that season is one of the craziest years that I covered. And I covered 2010, but just based on the fact that, for instance, as an example, I mean, that franchise, which is so well run now, and it was the Will's first year, was such a hodgepodge of just chaos that they had Mike Tice going up to the podium to basically answer all of the boat questions.
Yeah.
Now you would now have a lawyer. Like the fact that they didn't have an executive or a lawyer answer the questions. So like the media, including me, was grilling Mike about the Love Boat thing, and there were accusations that the player fine fund was then used to fund the Love Boat.
Yes.
I mean, it was off the hook. But I always felt empathy for Mike. I mean, Mike had nothing to do with that, and he was like the lead spokesman, the coach of the team. He was the lead spokesman. So it was crazy. I would love to hear Nate's thoughts.
So that season, the Love Boat thing happens after week 4. So they were 1-3 going into the bye.
Yeah.
They then
Lost to
came.
Atlanta.
They got beat by Atlanta, and then they I don't know. I think some of the entertainers joined the. They came from some of them came from Atlanta. I don't know if they were on the team flight, but
no, I think they definitely. I think our guy Smoody might have definitely gone into the strip clubs when the Vikings were in town to recruit some of the talent.
you guys got to come up here next weekend.
Which led to the great quote of all time, Matt Burke. Burke had 2 great quotes, and one was, "What's wrong with our strippers?"
Right, exactly. You don't like the Minneapolis-based talent? So they have the bye week. The Love Boat thing happens. It's all over the news. And then they come back. They go to Soldier Field, get smoked 28-3. So now they are 1-4. They actually swept the Packers that year. The Packers were down. Brett Favre was throwing a bunch of interceptions.
Yeah.
So they beat the Packers at home in week 7. And then it was the famous at Carolina game where A, Daunte Culpepper tore his knee up, and B, Steve Smith, young Panthers receiver, did the boat celebration in the end zone, torching Fred Smoot all afternoon. So you come out of that week humiliated, 38-13 loss. Your star quarterback, who had been struggling that year, but was second in MVP voting the year before, out for the season with a devastating knee injury that changed the trajectory of his career.
Oh, yeah.
And you are 2-5 going into November. And with Brad Johnson at the helm, they rattle off 6 straight wins to get to 8-5 going into the last 3 weeks. And it's like, this is crazy. This is the hottest team in the NFL. They're going to be a playoff team. The defense was outstanding. Like, they were holding teams to 14, 17, 12, 16, 13. Yeah. And then they lose the game at home to Pittsburgh, lose at Baltimore, and they win the last kind of meaningless game. But it was a wild roller coaster ride season. And then it led to the firing of Mike Tice.
Was the loss at Baltimore on Christmas?
Yeah.
Yes, it was Christmas.
Okay, yeah. I remember being in it was a Christmas night game.
Yeah.
And I remember being in a godforsaken Baltimore hotel all Christmas Day, and that was a very interesting observation of life to be in a hotel.
Yeah, the Vikings were actually leading that game going into the fourth quarter. They were up 20-17. Paul Ettinger knocked home a field goal to put the Vikings up 20-17, and then that was kind of
Kyle Bowler with the game of his life that day too. Might have been one of his best starts of his career. 3 touchdowns, 289 yards. Big arm, Kyle Bowler.
Let's go, Kyle Bowler. LFG, dude. Also, Chester Taylor was playing for the Ravens.
On the Baltimore team.
Yeah, that was his last. Yeah, back up to Jamal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, man. Zach Turnage chimes in here. Some bonus feedback Friday, and he says, I can explain why there are so many Vikings fans in Virginia. Remember, this has been a topic on the show for the last few years. So my family's from Virginia. There are dozens of military bases in Virginia, along with a massive shipyard that employs tens of thousands of people. The state of Virginia is a melting pot of people from all over the United States, more so than any other state. There are large contingents of fans from every team because so many people who live in Virginia aren't from here. You get a bunch of different fan bases. It's a quirk of Virginia that they have so many non-native Virginians that other non-local teams have larger fan bases than most parts of the country. So, somebody else sent me that there's big fan, like organized Vikings fan groups in Virginia too.
South Carolina, a similar situation. We've seen a bunch of people from South Carolina, North Carolina, to being military base heavy and transplant people from all over the world, and most in this case the country. But yeah, that does make some sense with the melting pot of transplant people being military and stuff too.
Isn't Kevin Seifert from Virginia? Mm-hmm. Even like Vikings beat writers are from Virginia.
Well, no, he went to school there. I don't know that he's from there, but he definitely went to college there.
Okay. What would you say anecdotally are like the biggest, most wide-ranging fan bases in the NFL?
Well, it's grown and changed, but I mean, like when I covered the Vikings, to go back to that 2005 game against Pittsburgh at the Metrodome. Pittsburgh, I mean, they had a ton of fans at the Dome. 2005 Vikings fans traveled, but nothing like now. When I covered the Packers, the stench of alcohol from Packer fans on the planes from Green Bay and back to Green Bay was absolutely staggering. Packer fans were sort of like, I would compare them by 2003 and 4 to sort of like what probably Cubs fans became, like just all over the place. But I believe that list has now grown, and the Vikings definitely went from, I've always felt like there was a sort of a cult of Vikings fans that traveled to now it's just game on.
I mean, we've seen back-to-back years of 49ers coming into here, US Bank Stadium, and
True.
Even
and the Chiefs now too, because they're popular.
Chiefs makes sense, but like I remember back-to-back years, I think I was at MOA or I was out the day before the Vikings game against the Niners, and there was just Niners fans everywhere. So I don't know if that's just them traveling from California or if it is really just they're like the Vikings. They just travel really well from across the country.
And I think any franchise that had a prolonged extended period of success gets fans in cities that aren't theirs. Like, because if you grew up like me in the 80s, like San Fran, phenomenal. Montana into Young. And like the Packers, by the time I covered them in 2003 and 4, Favre still there, right? And the Packers, don't forget, got good circa 92. Favre comes along. They win a Super Bowl eventually. Yeah. So I do think that there is something, and now the Chiefs are that team, but I do think that there is something to be said as far as teams that have a ton of success for a prolonged period, and probably most importantly, the quarterback.
Yeah, the dynasty thing, like the number of obnoxious Cowboys fans that came out of the 90s, and then the number of obnoxious,
good one,
Patriots fans, they're not all from Boston. Wouldn't that be wild if it's hard to even envision, but if the Vikings at some point rattled off like 3 championships in 5 years, in a Chiefs-like way, would there just be random obnoxious Vikings fans popping up all over the country? People would just be just sick of like these bandwagon Vikings fans.
I gotta admit, of all the sports fan things and stuff, though, like for me personally, I understand why it happens, but like I could never put myself in the shoes of just becoming a fan of a team that's winning championships. Like I love the Cubs, but that was because of GN, and they were lovable losers. Like they weren't some great, but like to adopt a team because they're winning championships, and I'm a Vikings fan, and now I'm going to get rid of the Vikings as my team. Gotta admit, never really crossed my mind as a possibility personally.
But I think for that very reason, the Vikings are an appealing team if you don't have a favorite NFL team, or if you are. We've heard this from some of the European fans that consume Purple Daily, that they're doing research on, okay, I want to watch more NFL football, and I want to know what team do I connect the best with. If you're choosing the current dynasty, I think that says something about you. I'm going to be a Chiefs fan. Well, that's not fun. They're already – but choosing the team – and by the way, on the flip side of that, if you choose the Browns or the Jets, it's like, all right, there's just no hope at all whatsoever. It's misery until they sell the team. So who's the team that hasn't had the success at the very top, but that could, that there's hope because they're actually competitive? And the Vikings are kind of the perfect profile for if you're looking for a team to be a fan of. That, yeah, I mean, it's going to be devastating for you, but
people buy in and stay on board. I respect. See that I respect. Conversely, I respect that. I respect the guys or the people that say, my dad loved the Vikings, and I have bought into the pain. And we've talked to people that adopted them at really odd times and didn't drop them.
Oh. Jeff Campbell chimes in and says, hey, guys, I've been enjoying being a Purple Daily subscriber and consumer. I'm 57 years old, and my earliest memory of being a Vikings fan was the game against the Browns when I saw Tommy Kramer and Ahmad Rashad connect on that Hail Mary.
Oh, yeah.
I ran all over the house screaming in delight.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I'm writing this to tell you guys that I've been diagnosed recently with brain cancer.
Oh.
I hope you will all keep me in your thoughts and prayers, and I still hope the Vikings can win a Super Bowl before I die. I do greatly appreciate the content that you put out for us. Please keep me in your thoughts. Skull Nation, I refuse to give up fighting for this thing. Sincerely, Jeff.
Absolutely. Yep. And Jeff, you're in our thoughts. We appreciate you. Again, that's what makes this community really, really cool, which is it's a family. So yeah, that is definitely bad news, but keep fighting, keep up the good fight. And we definitely will keep you in our thoughts. And time to win a Super Bowl.
Amen. Yeah, Jeff, let's go. Guys, you got the roster. You got a good young quarterback. Let's make it happen for guys like Jeff here. Hey, shout out to MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. The air conditioning part's going to be
it's going to becoming very important.
Huh?
It's becoming very important because it's going to get hot, and guess what? You're going to turn on that air conditioner, and it's going to go, but it's not going to start. And you're going to be like, why is it not starting? And this is where I'm going to give you a tip because MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air, they're fantastic, and they have what they call their Total Comfort Club for $8 a month. AC tune-up, furnace tune-up, and a plumbing check. In other words, find out that air conditioner is not going to work before it's 90 degrees outside. You get priority service, which is fantastic, which means no waiting. And if you do need repairs, you're going to get 10% off service. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air. I've told you, I've used them. I trust them. They do fantastic work. And now I want you to find out firsthand. 651-615-4292 or check out their website. Call MSP.com. Call MSP.com and get signed up for that Total Comfort Club to make sure your house is comfortable as can be.
Yeah. So, all right, we're a week past the draft now, so we're into like the real off season now. People think that the off season starts after the Super Bowl. No, that's actually like crazy season. This is more off season, but
yeah, I love where you're going.
We've got so much stuff over the next few months, starting with the NFL schedule release in 2 weeks. Judd's camp notes, sharpening his pencil, his field goggles.
Let me pull something out here for May, my calendar. I got my calendar right here. Let's just say this, boys. On Friday, May 9th, 1 week from today, I'm going to have a rookie mini camp practice to attend.
Look at that, dude.
Not open to the public. Not open to the public. I'm sorry about that. But time to make some observations. And as I told Chip on Purple Access yesterday, this is exciting because now there will certainly be a lot of cuts to come. But now your roster is sort of your roster. You might make an addition here or there, might a little bit, but you've got your roster now.
Yeah,
it's time to start to really go through that roster with a fine-tooth comb.
So, yeah, Judd's camp notes, starting with rookie mini camp, and then eventually OTAs and the actual mini camp with the full roster. There's so much stuff on the way here on Purple Daily, and then we've got some fun kind of June, July content planned as well. So, yeah, for those of you that are just kind of learning about the NFL calendar, and maybe in previous years you've ducked out in February and you rejoin in September. Join us throughout an entire off season. We will give you your Vikings content high for 365 days, even throughout these summer months. So he's the sports dad, executive producer Dex. I'm Phil. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. See ya.